Hey everyone, welcome to another ecosystem session. We have the Neighbourhoods team back again. We have Wes, Emaline, and Julio. Hey guys.
Hey.
And
Hey there.
and they're fresh off D-Web, and so Emaline has some non-technical content she's going to share, and then we're going to go into a demo, if that's okay for everyone. So amazing. Emaline, over to you. You have sharing power.
Wonderful.
Already activated.
Okay. All right. Can y'all see my screen and slideshow?
Yep. It's coming up nicely.
Okie doke. So wanted to take a few minutes to kind of give a high-level introduction of the Neighborhoods project. And what we're doing here with Neighborhoods is creating the possibility for group-defined groupware. So just in ultra simple terms, what you can do with the Neighborhoods framework is customize the look and feel and also the behavior of a bundle of Holochain apps. And you can do that in sort of a cohesive, smooth UX. So our big motivation for this project is basically opening up the black box of social media algorithms. And so in wanting to do this, to give communities the means to basically understand their social app experience better, and also to be able to design it, even for non-technical users, the project is sort of based on these two interlocking ideas of enabling participatory culture for social apps, and also data literacy for members of the application, and again, even non-technical members. And sort of what we did as a group here was we spent a lot of time researching kind of the core components of social apps and broke these down into little pieces, so that we could create social tools for groups to be able to customize and bundle together these little modules, without needing to do any coding really. So I'll talk about what that looks like. So in the Neighborhoods framework, you'll notice this sort of Discord-like interface. What you can do as a community is you can bundle together a bunch of little applets. So, you can think Discord style social coordination, but with massively expanded functionality around the type of social tools you can use. So you can select a bunch of different applets, but then you can also design and customize kind of what we consider the cultural overlay of those applets. And of course, all of this is on Holochain, so it takes advantage of Holochain's native validation rules and kind of just everything being on chain cheaply. So here's one example of something you could do using Neighborhoods. This is kind of a prototype we made of a collaborative playlist, right? So in our framework, and there's a lot going on here. So on this sidebar over here, the vertical, you could see all of the neighborhoods you're in. And then over on the top bar, you can see all of the different apps or applets that your neighborhood is using. And so in our framework, these songs here, these generic songs, we consider those resources. And then the little icons that you can click, those reactions, we consider assessments. And so our framework is sort of built out this way. Like you can create lots of group artifacts, and do preference sensing, prioritizing, sort of group-based sorting based on this notion of resources that you collectively assess or react to. So with our tools, you get this framework for reactions and for assessments. And so you can literally plug these in under different apps that you're using. And so again, this really opens up the possibility to take a sort of generic app and apply your group's sort of moods, your group's preferences, and create a strong feedback loop between the entire community that really gives a lot of valuable kind of ongoing information that's sometimes even called governance, right? So you can do all manner of voting, prioritization, um, and really get data from members that ends up feeding into the behavior of the app. And so we're also creating kind of like a startup wizard where what you can do as a community organizer or as a member, even without technical skills, is you know, you take those resources, you add assessments or reactions to them, and then you can apply methods to those assessments. So this is where things get a little more complex and where you can really use neighborhoods to kind of design on your own terms uh, algorithms for your social apps. So methods compute um, these assessments on resources. And we're working really hard to give this in sort of a no code way. So you have this kind of plain English description of what a method does. And so in this example of a feed app, you can see like on the left, the concrete jungler side, there is a feed that is ordered purely chronologically, like basically it's uncurated. But then over here, you see this recency feed. And as we saw in the previous slide, this is a feed that is ordered based on likes and time passed, dividing likes by minutes to mix both popularity and recency. So essentially, you have an uncurated feed, but you can use these methods in order to create different contexts. Um, within your application space, within your neighborhood. And in addition to all of this, we're also offering dashboards so that you can kind of look, in theory, anyone could look under the hood of a neighborhood and be able to see how data passes through the app, and also, sort of which members are liking what. And it really offers a way for people to be able to see how their data and how group data um, informs what they see and what the application does, and therefore also, how their community is really operating. And then, so, as neighborhoods, we're offering all of these community design and social coordination tools. But what we're not offering is all of these, you know, millions of possible different miniature holochain apps for communities to use with our design tools. And so for that, we have kind of our neighborhood. And so what we're also offering as an organization is a space for communities and developers of these kind of generic applications to be able to find each other and use sort of an offers and needs framework to be able to, discuss and prioritize what they want to build, and also to be able to settle payments with each other. And we think this will really benefit communities who can share the costs of the development of these apps, and a bunch of different communities can use the same apps because what we offer as neighborhoods is the means to customize these on a really deep level. And then so we also deduct a small transaction fee in our native token, neighborhoods token, to support the project. So that is just a brief overview. And so now we'll get into the technical side.
Should I start sharing my screen then?
Yeah,
right.
please.
I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Wesley. I'm a developer on the Neighborhoods team, and have been having a lot of fun taking these ideas and trying to actually implement them into some kind of product. And yeah, I'll kind of walk us through what it's like to create a neighborhood, what it's like to add an applet to it, and to see this SenseMaker working and creating assessments and being able to see those assessments in different contexts, like within the applet or in the dashboard. But I don't know if like you or Julia, or yeah, Blind, you or Julia wanted to say anything before I kind of take it away.
Maybe I'll take the questions later if there are any questions, or try to make more clear some of these steps if there's any questions.
Cool.
Go ahead, Wes.
All right, can you guys see my screen? Okay, so this is the Neighborhoods launcher. It's a fork of We, so it's kind of the container, the scaffolding for groups to for users to create neighborhoods and to add applets to it. So the first thing we'd want to do is create a new neighborhoods, a new group. So to do that, it's kind of similar to the Discord interface. We're going to want to add a little image here, give our neighborhood a name, neighborhoods. So, and then you can see here on the sidebar, this is where the left sidebar is where you would see all the different neighborhoods that you're a part of, similar to Discord. So we're going to go here. And then for each neighborhood, you want to create a new profile for that. We do have some ideas and plans around making use of deep key so that each of your profiles are still connected through your conductor. So I've got a headshot here. Okay, so we've just successfully created a new neighborhood and a profile within that neighborhood. And so this is sort of the homepage of the neighborhood. You can see there's some sort of settings to see applets, some information about applets. The main thing that we're going to want to do right now is add an applet that we've created from outside of the Neighborhoods launcher. So today we have a to-do applet to share with all of you. And basically, an applet is just a webapp file. So there's a standard for bundling applications in Holochain, and one of those is the webapp, which bundles the app and the UI. So the Neighborhoods launcher is really just is like an engine to run these webapp files that conform to the applet standard. So just going to install this webapp file, and then when we have the marketplace, it's basically going to be an applet that stores these webapp files. Okay, so this is we've installed the applet, but now this pop-up is sort of like a bit of a wizard for configuring the widgets within the applet. So Emaline had shown that we want to allow groups and people to sort of customize and define how they interact with resources within the applet. So this is just sort of a way to see what the options are. So this on the right here is all the different widgets that are defined within what we call a widget library. So each group will have a widget library, which will store all the different ways of interacting with resources. Right now we have 4, so we have the star, the thumbs up, thumbs down, the heat scale, and then the check mark. We'll be able to change this whenever we want, but we'll start with this one. And it shows a little bit of an example of what that might look like, depending on the type of applet or resource. So that's selected, we'll save that. So now this is the to-do applet within the Neighborhoods launcher. So we're going to go ahead and create a new to-do list. The classic example I use is groceries list. Whoops, not groceries, groceries. Yeah, so say we need, I don't know, we're going to have a potluck and we need to coordinate who's getting what, or to figure out what ingredients we actually want or what people want to eat. So we're going to add some items to our grocery list. Okay, so what we're looking at here is these items are resources within the to-do applet. So these are sort of defined by the applet, but on the left and right, these are SenseMaker related concepts. So this is the widget for assessing a resource. So the to-do item resources, we want to create assessments on these resources so that we can do interesting computations across the assessment data, to rank or to filter, to derive insights of the collective interactions of the group. So I'm going to go ahead and so basically these assessments will be created along a dimension, and the dimension, so these we kind of like pulling from data science, we model assessments as a multidimensional data model. Groups can define their own assessments and create data points along those assessments. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that I really want some apples. So that I'm going to assess that as like really, really hot. Like definitely we need apples. Oranges, like honestly, could skip the oranges, don't need them. Bananas, for sure, like really important for me, but not as important as apples. So I've just gone ahead and assessed all 3 of these grocery items. And what we can see here on the left, the SenseMaker context, these are, again, this is another thing from the SenseMaker, not from the to-do applet. And basically, these are computations across the assessment data that's stored in the group's SenseMaker. And so right now it's mostly just filtering and reducing across certain dimensions. And so these are all the different contexts that have been defined. This widget creates assessments along a dimension that is related to the urgent context. So if I click here, basically what this context is doing is it's filtering assessments, or it's filtering resources that have an average assessment. So it uses methods to compute the average value of assessments. Right now, there's just one assessment per resource because it's just me. Maybe we'll get around to showing multiple people in the same neighborhoods. And what this does is it's filtered resources by whatever has the chillier flame emoji value or assessment value. So you can see in the actual list, there's oranges, but that gets filtered out here. And of course, the idea is that this sort of generic pattern of assessing resources and then doing computations across them, like aggregation and reduction type computations, can allow interesting sort of feedback loops and insights, beyond just what ingredients do we need for this potluck. So that's sort of the to-do app in action. I want to show the dashboard as well, but maybe did anyone have anything they wanted to say?
Could also change the widgets too.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess maybe should we do that first and then go to the dashboard? Okay, so before we get to the dashboard, I just want to show how we can change the reaction widget so that we can start assessing these resources along a different dimension to add, just to add a higher dimensionality to this data model in our sense maker. So if we go back to the neighborhoods homepage, we can see here installed applets to do. If we have more applets installed, there'd be a longer list. And here there's this option to configure the widgets of the applet. So this brings up that same screen that popped up right after we installed the applet. And again, we see the multiple options. So now I'm going to switch it to the thumbs up, thumbs down. We see what that kind of looks like. Or actually, maybe we'll switch it to this one, the importance. So I think some of them look nicer than the others, basically. So we just switched the applet or the widget for the applet. So let's go back to the to-do applet. And okay, now we can see that the widget has changed. So now when I go through here and assess the resources, it's along a different dimension, which has a different sort of meaning to it. So the heat scale could mean something to the group. And this is actually part of sort of like specific culture, generic tech. Groups sort of, they can define the meaning of dimensions and what that means within that group. So this is sort of that in action here. Maybe the star means like, oh, this needs to be followed up with, or this needs to be looked at today, for example. So I'm going to go ahead and assess this orange, give it a star rating. And so this is the widget for assessing. And then on the left is the widget for displaying the value of the output assessment of a method. So methods take a set of input assessments and then compute an output assessment. And this output assessment here is just the total number of stars for this resource. Right now it's just 1, these ones have 0. And now if we go to the SenseMaker context, we'll see that now that we've assessed this, it will actually show up in this context, the important context, because it meets the criteria of the threshold when it does the filtering. And then these ones still show up in this context because they have the assessments from the heat scale dimension. So now I think maybe we could take a look at the dashboard, so let's do that.
And just to mention that the context here is all these contexts are predefined by the SenseMaker, but any applet developer can create as many contexts as they want to kind of do lists of resources according to some sense making that the group is doing. So the applet developer can, initially for now, only the applet developer can create those config files. But in the future, with this wizard that we are developing, we want community activators to be able to modify or even create brand new config files for applets, which will allow all kinds of new interactions. And the dashboard is where you can see how that looks like.
Yeah, so the dashboard is sort of a neighborhoods wide view into the data that's in the sense maker. So all of the assessments that people are generating through their interactions and through their, basically through their interactions within all of the different applets. And this is sort of meant to just be like a holistic view into what people in this group are doing. So this tab is all the resources in the neighborhood. So it gives you the resource hash, which user created the assessment, and then it lists the different dimensions that exist, and then it shows, right now it's showing two things, but it's showing the value of this assessment along its given dimension. So this assessment was a flame emoji on the perceived heat dimension. We can see here this resource from when we assess it with the star it's showing up as a value. It has one assessment along this dimension. And what's interesting too is we can still assess dimensions, or we can still assess resources from the dashboard. So maybe we don't want to go all the way to the applet to assess something. So we can just come here and create an assessment, and then we see that shows up again in the dashboard because it's a new assessment. And
in the future, we also want to have a hint of the UI of the resource that you are assessing in the dashboard. So right now you can only see the hash, but we want to have a generic way for rendering the widget inside the dashboard, so we can. And this is really tricky because we're mixing DNAs, right? We're trying to get a generic way to render widgets. So this is one of the future interactions we want to build. Another thing to remember is that each neighborhood has their own sense makers. So sense maker is not, it's for each neighborhood. And if you eventually in the future we want neighborhoods to communicate, and we'll have inter-sense maker communication. So one sense maker can talk to the other.
Yeah, I guess maybe the last thing I could show is up here. These tabs are contexts again. So contexts are defined at the neighborhood level, not at the applet level. So that's why they show up here in the dashboard. So if we click here, it'll show all the assessments all of the resources that have been assessed along the heat dimension, which is associated with the urgent context, and then again here the important the important dimension. So it's gonna filter the resources according to how the context is defined, and that can be viewed from this sort of neighborhoods wide dashboard as well.
Cool. And you can also invite more members into the neighborhood, and then you can see.
Yeah, Wesley, it would be pretty cool to just spend a little bit of time on member management.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go through those steps. So I have two instances of the neighborhoods launcher. So they're separate conductors, trying to emulate, two different people on different devices. So each user has a public key. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this from the second user, copy their public key, and then come over to the first user that has already created the neighborhoods. And this is currently how we manage invitations and members. You just invite them directly through their public key. So if we go back to the second user, we can see that there's an invitation here to join this neighborhood. So you have to invite a specific member directly with their public key, and then you have to accept the invitation. Okay, so there we go. This second user has now joined the neighborhoods. So now I'm going to have to create a second person. Okay, so now what we see in the homepage for the second user is applets to join. So you don't automatically join the applet. That's currently how it's set up. We could change that, but that web-app file hasn't been stored anywhere that can be accessed by other members. So to join, we're going to have to go and upload the same web-app file, which was this one. And there's a funny little bug where we just have to do it twice. Okay. So now this is the second user. They've joined, and now they're configuring their widgets for the applet. And right now we have the widget configuration as a per user setting, but we are thinking about what would that look like if it's only certain roles are allowed to actually set the widget configuration. So yeah, let's go ahead and choose this one again. Okay, so now we can see the groceries list is here. And look at that. So there's existing ones. I can go in.
They already have values, as you can see on the left.
Yeah. So these are the assessments from the first user. I can go ahead and assess them myself. Right. So now these are the average values.
Averages. Mm-hmm.
And I can go ahead and add something else like broccoli. And if I switch to the second user, we can see that that's here. That's showed up here. Or maybe I want to create a new list. And we'll see that.
And interesting to see that each user is seeing different sets of widgets, and they can't see the assessments made on the other dimension unless they switch to the same widgets. So the data is there, but it's not visible on the UI.
Yeah, but if we go to the dashboard of the second agent, we should see all the widgets that have already been used.
Yeah.
What's happening here? Yeah, so that's mostly what we have for like members and managing them. It's pretty basic at the moment, but it is working. You can see the assessments that your other group members, other neighbors are generating in real time. So that's nice.
And we have three kind of working applets. The to-do applet is the more developed one, but we do have a time tracker applet and a feed applet in the way, almost there. So, and we are in contact with applet developers as well to start building applets that the neighborhoods are requesting, and that's where the marketplace will be interesting. So we can bind the needs from neighborhoods to applet developers to work for them and build the applets. And that's the near future.
Yeah. Just to clarify kind of where we're at, it's like, since the end of 2021, start of 2022, basically, we've been building out all of this stuff. I mean, including the wizard and the dashboards and the sense maker as just open source, freely available software. And then we're kind of turning toward the end of this year to build Neighborhoods Neighborhood, which is the marketplace with these matching features, with the intention of bringing a lot more applets on board and getting pilot communities set up with the means of using neighborhoods through our own neighborhood. So we're dog fooding too.
So any other questions, David?
No, I was just thinking it's actually really cool because then, you're yeah, just some of the things that Wes you were sharing around, like, well, how does a neighborhood come with all the applets pre-installed, or does everyone use the same sense making tools and all those kind of things? And I guess that's the thing, like the neighborhood in a way, like, is the vanguard for what's possible. It's real, yeah. I feel like I'm like I've snuck in like a third of the way through. In other words, I've like the realization of the vision. It's incredible to see, and then at the same time, it's like I know that there's so much more that's coming. In bringing it together, I think it's a really, yeah. Wes, can you just go to the overview again for me?
Here or
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I think this is really interesting for me, just because this is this hard, isn't it? Where you sit here and you're able to bring new people on board. You're able to bring in an applet. You're able to check the applets you've invited, that others have invited you to join within this social space only. Yep, that you haven't yet joined. What you've got installed, what you've uninstalled, the danger zone. Yeah, really awesome. I mean, it's going to be pretty cool. I know, like that we Spaces is going through another upgrade, and we're going to see what's happening, what that looks like in 2 or 3 weeks, so maybe 4 weeks. Yeah, and I'm really excited to see how you guys and we, and to some extent Adam and Flux and Perspective, like, all work together and don't work together. And I guess I've been thinking about like, is it possible that groupware is to Holochain what, token and token standards are to Ethereum or something like that? Because it seems like there's, there's all this creativity and convergence and divergence going into the way that we're bringing people together and the way that they're able to collaborate. So, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to both see this, but also to, I guess, start to guess on how this is all going to unfold.
Yeah.
What was the
Yeah.
feedback? Oh, sorry, Emaline, go.
Oh no, it just totally speaks to what's special about the Holochain ecosystem in my mind. Everyone converging around this notion of social coordination
Yep.
and of groupware is really, it's just a testament to the fact that there's so much hunger to just kind of bring everything on chain and to
Yeah.
really be able to do the things that you can do on the existing social web, but in a distributed environment, with data sovereignty,
Yep.
and with these forms of validation that really enable a lot of trust, I think.
So, Emaline, you were at D-Web last year as well as this year, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What I guess 2 quick questions before we wrap up. What differences did you notice? And I guess there's really 2 layers to it. Like, what difference did you notice in the overall spirit of D-Web is fine, but also what differences did you notice in the way that people were relating to you and Neighbourhoods?
Yeah, definitely. Like on the D-Web level, I was really heartened to see. I mean, so last year we were all coming out of COVID, and I think there was a lot of social squirreliness. But I think that one of the big differences is the effort that was put into from the camp organizers, to bring together not just technologists, but also users from all over the world who need these tools in a way that I don't think was as visible as it was last year. So
Yeah.
there was really a lot of juiciness in the, in the not only the urgency, but also the kind of design space, like where users and technologists come together.
Yep.
And then on the Neighbourhoods and Holochain side, I mean, it was really affirming. Like, we'd sit down at a dinner table with strangers and say, "Oh, well, we're from a Holochain project called Neighborhoods." And they'd go, "Oh, yeah, 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 Neighborhoods. Cool. I've been following you guys. We got
Interesting.
it." And it kind of aligns also with the move in the narrative of DWeb Camp from it was all governance talk last year, which
Yeah.
has like a very kind of serious and intense ring to it. It's related to kind of the DAO explosion from before. But this year it was so much more around this language of social coordination and like group cohesion. And
Hmm.
so I think people have dropped some of the pretenses um, and kind of expanded their minds around like what is possible to do um, using peer-to-peer technologies. Like it's
Hmm.
not just about managing funds, it's also about creating cohesion and coordination in social groups, really of all scales around, sure, around tokens, but also around a bunch of other things that are really important and will continue to grow in importance, you know?
Okay. That was fantastic. Thanks. And then, yeah, so when you were demoing and drilling down on like a little bit, like when you were demoing, then what was the feedback like when you were showing some of the things that Wes is just, or Wes, were you there?
Yeah, I
Okay,
was
super.
there.
So
Yeah,
Wes, then for you, like, yeah, what was the feedback like? And
it was, yeah, it was incredible. We basically did the exact same thing we just did
yep,
in the past hour roughly. Um, and there were quite a few people. We got lucky, and our demo was like the morning of the first full day of events. And there was like probably over 20 people, super engaged, and asking a lot of really interesting questions that demonstrated that they were getting the core concepts, and then they were asking questions that were built on top of like the sort of the core concepts of groupware and
yep.
coordination widgets, etc. So the feedback was really, really encouraging. Yeah, it was just so powerful to be with a crowd that was so receptive and engaged and like understanding of the core ideas we were trying to demo and communicate.
Awesome. Okay, and I think final question, maybe, but when Eric first showed me we, and then he navigated between like the agent-centric and data-centric view, I had one of those moments where like I'm living in the future. Did you notice like were there did you notice in the audience, did anyone have like that kind of like real aha or whatever you want to call it moment, or were you aware of like any particular things you showed which started to bend people's minds?
I think showing the selection of the widgets and the dashboard, there was a lot of what looked like those like a light bulb
Yep.
moments in the crowd. They were like, "Whoa,
Yep.
that's really cool." But I don't know, maybe Emaline and Julio noticed other things as well.
Well, just a little bit. I think we saw some people light up around what it's possible to do with like social data transparency, like we're trying to make available with the dashboard. Like in
Interesting.
the sense of, oh, okay, so not only can you do all this preference sensing and prioritizing and sorting, but this could also kind of be like a community moderation tool, which you don't see very much of in DWeb, like in the sense of, you can actually go in and see if a particular agent is assessing everything negatively across the board. Like it kind of gives you a
Mm,
view into spamming or into leadership in the same way.
wow. Okay. Julio, what did you notice?
Yeah, I also saw people interested about inter neighborhoods communication and being able to communication between applets, because we only demoed one applet at this demo, but as soon as we have more, this is interesting to see how those applets are going to communicate, and how you can transfer some of your reputation in one neighborhood to the next. And this is something we want to expand soon, and it's going to be possible because of the architecture of the sense maker. So very exciting.
Also, I have something I could just add on to what you said, David, about agent-centric, data-centric, living in the future. The way I think of it sometimes is we're sort of exploring the space of what does it mean when you can bring your own compute power into the social groups that we form ourselves. So that's where the sort of agent-centric notion really comes into play, and that's where Holochain can be so powerful, is it allows to bring their own compute, and then when the group is the complete steward of the computations within their interactions and communication, what new possibilities does that enable? What new insights and forms of coordination does that enable?
Yep.
It's like, we're really trying to create a social computational fabric for groups.
Yep.
That are the main stewards of that computation.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the space that we're exploring, and it's really, really neat.
It's really unique, and I think one of the interesting, it's clearly going to take off. One of the really interesting things are what group purpose is going to be predisposed to the coordination of compute in the way that you just described, that will be then a leader for other. Eric often shows in the squash club demo, because I know he plays squash, but I can't imagine squash clubs around the world, being the primary adoption driver of neighborhoods, because they're holy crap, we've always wished we had a social sense making tool,
Well, that's kind of why I think it's fun that we demo with a grocery list.
Yeah,
right?
I like
Because
that
this stuff
too.
could be, you could spin this up in order to literally do a weekend potluck with 15 people. But at the same time, stuff that excites me is citizen science projects. And one of the pilot communities we're talking to, it's kind of looking at measuring their carbon footprint and stuff like that. So you can imagine kind of more highfalutin use cases, as well as hey, let's get together and buy some groceries, eat together.
Yeah, you can actually medium term totally imagine nuclear families being a large adoption driver, because they're kind of not a really good group to build things for, but they're a very well coordinated network that use WhatsApp or whatever as the family grows up, and probably would like different forms of interaction, especially travel scheduling and all sorts of things that it's not a really major monetization or monetizable group. But actually, from this paradigm, all these tools that do have really solid markets, if members are able to coordinate around those tools too, suddenly it just opens up this new paradigm. But yeah, I'm so interested in the machine aspect as well, and whether it's manufacturing or whatever, what would a neighborhood of machines or robots working together producing a car, what would that look like, and what's happening there, and what kind of sense making is happening, and what can we learn if we start to share compute and look at information in a different way. But that's just my warped mind, possibly. Okay, yeah, it's Wes, it's really interesting you went there, because that was going to be that was going to be the follow up for me, is around like, do you think it's starting to land? So when I show Acorn to people, I feel like that one of the paradigms starting to land is the financial model of compute changes, which means Acorn has no pressure to sell my data. One, because it doesn't have it, because Acorn is a communication pattern, not an application. And I say it like I understand what that means and other people know better. But I think I've said it so many times now that I really believe it. But it's true, because it's not an application as we know it, because what we know of as an application is a thing that's aware of everything that's happening in its world. And Acorn isn't, it doesn't know. It's just a pattern for communicating mind maps that you and I happen to be using. And what starts to happen, I've noticed, is something happens in the physical body, like a relaxation, when they start to play around with it, because they just realize there's no reason for Acorn to need to grow in the way that technology has grown since we've all known it, because it has no reason to sell your data, because it doesn't need to, because it can't, but primarily because it doesn't need to, because you're all contributing to it. And so it's interesting you pointed out that, and I don't know if that came up as a discussion, or it was more around the sense making and social coordination side of things. But the financial or business model implications, or the lack of business model implications of what that mean, I don't know if those kind of conversations were had, or you guys have them much, and what that might mean for neighborhoods.
Well, I mean that I don't know what to add to that, because that really opens up a huge conversation topic.
Yes, sorry.
But yeah, the way I think of it is, I think you bring up a good point, and then it looks like Julio has a point, so I'll try and keep it short, is for so long we've only got to experience a very narrow form of networked computation in the world with the internet, with our computing devices. And things like Holochain open up a new sort of adjacent possible for exploring new forms of network computation, new patterns. And this is super generic, but just speaking to the point of like these different paradigms and taking the pressure off of specific business models, like there's just this whole new space that has not really been explored yet of agent-centric distributed computations. And that's just really exciting that's a really exciting space to be in and to be exploring, and trying to establish patterns that have high potential to evolve and be useful to people.
Yeah, and we definitely believe in peer-to-peer and matchmaking, right? So the marketplace that we are striving to build is going to be a place that's going to connect applet developers and communities and community activators that have needs. So we need a specific applet. What if this applet here had this extra functionality that is not initially mapped? So you can kind of hire these applet developers through the marketplace, and then get your community having custom, functionality and things that you actually never dreamt possible, with things like Discord, where if you want to run activities, you have to exactly run the exact ones that they allow you to run. So it's super centralized. So in this case, it's totally peer-to-peer. We are just, kind of facilitating this communication between the peers. So and there is a business model as well. Of course, we can have some rules in this marketplace, and of course, other marketplaces can exist as well. Other people could create marketplace applets and, just start their own. But yeah, this is definitely a new territory for interaction in peer-to-peer land. So very exciting.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I think what it sounds like you're getting at to me, Julio, is like um, all of these new models, and neighborhoods is just one example of what we're doing with the marketplace. But these new models, I think, seem to center more on relationship building than on capture. And that's, like when you take away the possibility of capture, you're left with much more sort of earnest and relational means of relating to value. And doing this work of sort of initiating a network of builders and communities is very much that, like, difficult kind of high touch relational work, and that's really a big part of what we're offering, because these tools are open source.
Yeah, I like that, Julio. The users are no longer the product. The relationship is the product.
Yeah, facilitating the creation of relationships is a product. So we, yeah, that's the way we can behave in multi-agents, peer-to-peer networks, right? Cool.
Amazing, guys. Well, nothing more from me. That was incredible. Thank you so much. Yeah, keep up the good work and look forward to seeing the progress in the next couple of months.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, superb.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. And yeah, you can keep track of the Neighbourhoods team through their website or through all the social channels, and I guess especially through the Neighbourhoods neighborhood when it is live.
Mm-hmm.
All right.